Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. And like the show's two Facebook pages, one of them at Michigan Sports Truth, and the other created by the Staples Network. Go to the Staples Network's website, primetimewiththestaplesnetwork.com, like the Staples Network on Facebook, and follow it on Twitter and Periscope at Staples Network, and on Instagram at the Staples Network. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there.
I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith and Frank Vasner. Follow me on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at EdSmith313. And Frank Vasner on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Frank_Vasner. Ed, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good, Taylor. Keeping up as much as I can. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Frank, how about you?
Doing well, gentlemen. And I've been keeping up on stuff. I know there's been news that we're going to probably talk about regarding the NBA getting restarted as well as the MLB. So looking forward to discussing that with you fellas.
Yeah, we've got a lot of coronavirus sports headlines, including NFL, NHL, MLB, and NBA, and NCAA as well. And aside from the coronavirus, we're also going to talk about the Lions schedule and safety Tracy Walker remembering his cousin. Plus, a former Spartan men's basketball player got arrested. Former Los Angeles Laker got arrested, and I'll tell you who that is later. Plus, a little Blake Griffin injury update, which is very, very positive. And an Armando Galarraga story that we heard earlier this week. Plus, some more Luana K. Simon stuff that we're not going to be happy about. And then finally, the Red Wings showcasing Andreas Athanasiou from about 2.5 years ago from Jeff Moss of the Detroit Sports Rag. And that's going to be in our TMSTP story vault. But first, let's go to the coronavirus headlines. Here's what we know. The state of Arizona Governor Doug Ducey says all pro sports, MLB, NFL, NHL, and NBA can resume in the state of Arizona without fans. And Florida says all pro sports are welcome there too. In the NFL, the 2020 season schedule is released, but still pending due to the coronavirus concerns. In the NHL, the AHL cancels the rest of its season. A disease specialist suggests drastic changes for safe hockey during the pandemic, including full face mask and no fighting, according to one of the guys from TSN, as Frank point out on the air. And in MLB, continuing on there, the 2020 MLB draft will only last 5 rounds. There will possibly be a universal DH. MLB almost 6,000 MLB employees were tested. 60 that have tested positive, but 0 have died, which is good news. 0 deaths whatsoever. The 2021 World Baseball Classic was postponed to 2023 because of the pandemic. MLB Chief Tony Clark implies the players' union won't agree to the league's plan to share the revenue. And finally, MLB was concerned about an upcoming second COVID-19 wave coming this fall, which is also in the NBA. Adam Silver had a conference call last Friday. He said he'll make a decision on the season in 2 to 4 weeks. The NBA and the NCAA have postponed the NBA entry draft, which was originally scheduled June 3rd. Speaking of the NCAA President Mike Mark Emmert says fall sports are unlikely to happen if campuses remain closed due to the pandemic. The Mid American Conference cancels many postseason tournaments in 8 other sports, including the Chippewas, Broncos, and Eagles, Central, Western, and Eastern Michigan. And the NCAA will not have a uniform return date yet as of right now. So, Ed, we'll start with you. What do you make of all these headlines?
To me, it just continues a pattern of a slow, gradual process of eventually restarting sports and in a sense restarting the nation. Because I think in terms of, with the exception of the essential businesses that have been allowed to keep open in the midst of this pandemic outbreak, sports, along with everything else, has been relatively shut down. So now, gradually seeing what the UFC has been able to do, what WWE has been able to do, what the state of Florida is doing. It's all a gradual, bit by bit, step by step process, and that doesn't surprise me. In regards to the NFL, there is a reason why they still release the schedule. I think not so much necessarily after conferring with the president, but I would like to think that if you listen to the advice or the analysis, or I guess you could say analysis of what Dr. Fauci was expressing weeks earlier about seeing a possibility for sports to reopen with little to no fans, that was a possibility. And I think there is a scenario being discussed right now within the NFL that, hey, more than likely, some states will gradually reopen, allowing us to have our business there. But still, you still want to follow proper guidelines, social distancing, the safest procedures available. But I could see what the NFL is doing. Also, they're waiting to see what the other sports are doing. They're waiting to see how the MLB is going to do this. How is the NBA going to do this? How is the NHL going to do this? How is each specific league, respectively, how in their own essence, their own way, how they're going to reopen business for themselves. I think that will also shape how the NFL is going to do things, because everybody else is going to be open just about before the NFL does their thing, right? I mean, NHL, NBA probably wait a month or so after that, but still, you will see the guidelines for how they're going to reopen doors for them, and by that point, more than likely, we'll have some form of a baseball season up and running. So that's why the NFL did the thing that did in terms of releasing the schedule, because I think they're going to expect to not only start on time, but they will have some level of being allowed to, regarding allowing fans to enter the buildings, that may be in place as well. So I think that's the whole general gist of it in terms of how that will go. Since I'm on the topic of discussing how all the other sports is relating and is reacting to the week by week update regarding the COVID-19 outbreak. I will say that over the past weekend, the UFC was able to finally put forth their UFC 249 pay-per-view event. Of course, as you all know, originally scheduled for a last month. With issues regarding the COVID-19, it was initially canceled, and now it was, of course, revived and just instead reshoveled to a different date, which was this past Saturday night. You saw Francis Ngannou, heavyweight Francis Ngannou, continue to show why he deserves a title shot amongst the elite of the division. You saw Henry Cejudo cap off as probably as impressive a win streak as you can possibly get when he finished former longtime champion Dominic Cruz in the second round. So, and in the midst of that, immediately afterwards, apparently announced his retirement from the sport. Now, when you consider the fact that Cejudo, in his last few opponents, he beat and dethroned the legendary Demetrius Johnson. He beat the, at the time, #1 bantamweight in the world in TJ Dillashaw. Then, at that, went up a weight class to win a second championship in a second weight division, and then defends that championship against the consensus greatest bantamweight of all time in Cruz. So, if this was the end for Cejudo, that's not a bad way to go out on top, on your terms, and with your health as relatively good as possible. Now, There are others, namely Ariel Hawani, that believe that this is merely a negotiating ploy or tactic being used by Cejudo because he's not, or in his mind, feels he's not getting paid properly by the UFC. So this is a way that he can use to, up his value, showing that that you are able to walk away if need be. It is a tactic that Conor McGregor has used. It is a tactic that George St. Pierre has used. So we'll see if any measure of success works out for Cejudo. And in the main event, you saw probably one of the more surprising outcomes or methods of outcomes you will see in a title fight in recent memory. Justin Gaethje stops Tony Ferguson in the 5th round to claim the interim lightweight championship. Now, you would think this would means that it could very likely lead to a unification bout with champion Khabib Nurmagomedov, and that likely is still the case, with Khabib saying he may very well be able to fight earlier than expected around July. Because usually around this time he is practicing Ramadan. He wouldn't be available to fight till later on in the year, around fall. This time around, it seems that he may be available to fight earlier, and it's around, say, July or so. It's still a discussion of whether or not he will be allowed to even leave the country, leave Russia, under specific setups and guidelines. But if need be, it would come to it. But also keep an eye out for, believe it or not, Conor McGregor making his way back into the title picture. Don't be surprised if the UFC were to announce that, hey, in July, you'll see Gaethje defend his interim belt against McGregor, and then the winner of that will more than likely face Khabib. So always keep an eye out on that. And if you want a little WWE update, yes, they did manage to air their Money in the Bank program. Obviously, parts of that show were already taped in advance, including the specific ladder matches. WWE, obviously, in general, felt this was the tone that needed to be taken after WrestleMania, so they went with it. And I think we're going to be seeing, probably not every month, but you'll see specific instances of these types of matches pop up now in future regards to future shows. And also on a un-illness related note, but also a more positive, happy note, Becky Lynch is pregnant. So congrats to the man on her impending motherhood. And that's all I have from my end of the deal.
Frank, follow up.
Well, Ed, since you mentioned it, a possibility of a fight between Khabib and Conor McGregor, if that all gets to play out, that would definitely be something I'd be interested in tuning into. But from what I've heard on the NBA is that in addition to Adam Silver having his conference call with people high up in there, I've also heard that LeBron James and several of the big name players have had their own meeting on their time discussing if they want to get back to playing, and the consensus is yes, they do. So that's definitely something good. And again, I can't help but commend Adam Silver for really handling this the way he has and doing such a great job and making sure that I get things going the right way, but I do it in the manner that needs to be done. Also, Gary Bettman, the NHL commissioner, has said that he has never considered canceling the season. So who knows if they end up, when they get that going again. I have heard that Vancouver, British Columbia, has been considered as a potential hub city for the NHL, since they won't be able to play everywhere there. And again, there's still talk they may do the 2014 playoff with several play-in rounds, which will be a best-of-3 series. That's just basically chatter at this point. I don't know if that will happen or not. And as for the MLB, sounds like that they're trying to ask the players to take another pay cut. I know this current thing they approved, the owners approved, where you have an 82-game season that starts in July, universal DH. I'll get to more of that in a second. And a few other things as well, where you basically just play the teams in your division and crossovers with the other league division. So AL Central will play the NL Central, AL East will play the NL East, and AL West will play the NL West. Now, the players really don't seem to take too kindly to it, as Taylor mentioned, and the head Tony Clark was telling them they shouldn't approve it at all. And I know that there's been a little bit of Twitter beefs going on. I know Jose Altuve said it was going to be too dangerous, and Aroldis Chapman of the New York Yankees had to throw a little shade at him because Altuve was with the Astros and was part of their cheating shenanigans from a couple of years ago when they won a title.
And not to mention when Altuve hit his home run that sent the Astros to the World Series in this most recent ALCS. That, of course, was the home run that became the subject of whether or not Altuve was wearing the wire or the microphone that gave him the instructions that, hey, expect this pitch when he hit it.
Yes.
Yep, that's true.
So, I mean, I couldn't help but just give a chuckle at Chapman throwing shade. So we'll see what happens on the MLB's end of things.
I'll tell you this: I'd rather see a pitcher like Chapman be throwing shade than throwing beanballs at my head.
That's very true, Ed. So, and of course, we'll see what happens. Again, we'll see what happens with the NBA and the NHL. I know the NFL has had some talks of how they're going to get going too. I know the Carolina Panthers owner, his name escapes me at the moment. I know he said that it's possible that they could allow fans in to Bank of America Stadium while practicing social distancing. I know the Miami Dolphins have even suggested the same thing as well. So we'll see if that ends up happening. Although it might actually be easier to practice that if in an open air stadium rather than in a dome stadium. So
exactly, you wouldn't be hearing the Ford family making statements like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, and also on the college side, I know there's Mark Emmert said no athletics without students back on campus, but I do know the only school I know that's expecting students back on campus is Central Michigan, and I believe their president came out and said that he's expecting students on campus and having face-to-face instruction. So we'll take that for what it's worth for now, and hopefully things go up from there.
Yep. We'll have to see and keep following up on all that stuff. It's still an ongoing crisis until it all sweeps away.
That NCAA tidbit is very interesting because, like I said, instead of overstepping or overseeing all of it, Emmert is literally leaving the power up to the schools themselves, which is quite interesting to see.
As well as the conferences too.
Yes.
I mean, because I know they said that Los Angeles, California could be dealing with this a lot longer, so that might that's probably going to affect USC and UCLA. Hey, and I've heard rumors, I'm not saying that it's true or not, that Alabama and USC, who were supposed to play in week 1, that may be off the table, and that Alabama and TCU have talked about possibly playing each other in the event that falls through. So
I mean, yeah, we'll California alone, that's going to affect a bevy of Pac-12 of the Pac-12. But let's not forget up here with the Big Ten country.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because the state of Oregon has said they're going to postpone all sports until late September and October, because I know Ohio State is supposed to go out to Eugene in week 2. I'm hopeful that still happens, but who knows at this point? It's something that's out of my hands. So I'm sure that all the Big Ten athletic directors who are supposed to play a game out on the West Coast this season, they're probably looking at other options as well. I know Michigan's supposed to play at Washington in week 1. Michigan State plays at BYU in week 2, even though BYU is an independent and they go by their own rules. Who knows if that's going to happen or not?
Yep. Well, that's another. Those are more things that we got to keep our eyes on as well. Not to mention the Mid-American Conference canceling 8 postseason tournaments for the Central Michigan Chippewas, Western Michigan Broncos, and Eastern Michigan Eagles. That includes baseball, softball, track.
I think soccer as well.
Soccer, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did read something on that, and also they are limiting the basketball tournaments to just the top 8 teams. So teams that finish 9th through 12th, no postseason for you. Now, as someone who has gone to the MAC tournament in years past. I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and even covering a few games when I was at the University of Toledo that were in the opening round on UT's campus. It's always fun. It's always fun to watch. So it's probably going to take a little bit getting used to, but at the same time, it's not too often that you're going to see a team that finished 9th through 12th end up going on a big time run and winning the whole thing, aside from the Ohio Bobcats. And I believe it was, I forget what year it was. It was 2009 or 2010. That was when DJ Cooper was the freshman point guard and was really hooping it up pretty well there.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I noted Central Michigan University is going to reopen at least some face-to-face classes. So we're, in other words, in person. So that's one campus reopening in person, which makes it a little bit easier for the fall football season to open, for example, because I pointed out earlier, NCAA President Mark Emmert says fall sports are unlikely to happen if campuses remain closed due to the pandemic through the upcoming fall term. But it appears CMU is planning to open back up.
Right, because you notice football or basketball weren't in that cancel list. Basketball was limited, but it wasn't outright canceled.
Right. That's another point. Another good point, Ed. Yes. So those are two good reasons football may still go on in the NCAA, even with the Big Ten, the MAC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, and others in the ACC, the SEC, and others. Those are the power conferences, and even including the MAC, the MWAC, Midwest American Conference. All those conferences, they're still gonna play some football with or without fans. Probably without fans because it's still safer through this ongoing pandemic. So that tells the whole explanation there about the football season. Speaking of football, aside from the coronavirus, the NFL season was released. 2020's regular season schedule still pending, but we want to look at the Lions schedule for 2020. Week 1, Sunday, September 13th at 1 on Fox, home against the Chicago Bears. Week 2, Sunday, September 20th at 1 on Fox at the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. Week 3, Sunday, September 27th at 4:25 on Fox at the Arizona Cardinals in Phoenix. That's the third year in a row the Lions head to Arizona to play the Cardinals. And keep in mind, for those who are complaining about the Lions playing in Arizona about every year, they're actually 1-0-1 in Arizona, in Phoenix, against those Cardinals their last 2 trips. That was the year before last year and then last year when they blew a 24-7 lead and still ended up in a tie where they could have lost in overtime, as we all saw. Week 4, Sunday, October 10th at 1 on Fox, home against the New Orleans Saints. Week 5 was a bye week. Week 6, Sunday, October 18th at 1 on Fox at the Jacksonville Jaguars, an AFC team. Week 7, Sunday, October 25th at 1 on Fox at the Atlanta Falcons. Week 8, Sunday, November 1st at 1 on CBS, home against the Indianapolis Colts. Week 9, Sunday, November 8th, 1 o'clock at CBS at the Minnesota Vikings, an NFC North matchup. Normally it's on Fox, but it's on CBS for some reason. Week 10, Sunday, November 15th at 1 on Fox, home against the Washington Redskins. Dan Snyder, big locale. Week 11, Sunday, November 22nd at 1 on Fox, home against the Carolina Panthers. Cam Newton is still playing on that team.
No,
Week
Cam's
12,
gone.
No, oh, he's gone. Wow. Yeah, that's right. Wow. Yeah, just like that. They're going to play a new look Carolina Panther team. Week 12 on Thanksgiving Day, Thursday, 12:30 on CBS, home against the Houston Texans. The first time in 8 years they're going to play the Texans at Ford Field since they blew a lead when Jim Schwartz was head coach, and when he threw that too early red flag, and that one touchdown was not reviewable. which baffled many Lions fans everywhere, understandably. Week 13, Sunday, December 6th at 1 on Fox, home against the Chicago Bears, at the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field, rather. Week 14, Sunday, December 13th, 1 o'clock on CBS, on Fox, home against the Green Bay Packers. Week 15, Sunday, December 20th at 1 on a channel to be determined at the Tennessee Titans, probably on CBS or something because the Titans are an AFC team, but we could be wrong. Week 16, December 27th at 1 on a channel to be determined home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, probably on Fox because that's an NFC matchup. Week 17, last but not least, Sunday, January 3rd, 2021 at 1 on Fox, home against those Minnesota Vikings. So that's the schedule for you, Ed. What do you make of that?
A quick note before I dive into this. This upcoming season supposed to implement the extra playoff team, or was that next season?
I believe it's this season.
Okay, because I'm looking on my ESPN app and it was showing I believe a 17th game from, I don't know if that's supposed to be a preseason game, but it says August 20th, 8 p.m. on ESPN against the Jets. I don't know
a preseason game.
Okay, so that's meant to be a preseason game. Okay, I was just checking to be sure because I think it looks like from the gist of it, it's still 16 games for the Lions. Nonetheless, in terms of the schedule, let's go at a quarterly fashion, right? So,
yep.
For the first 4 games, 2 of those you got your divisional rivals. You split those at home and the road, right? You got the Bears at home, Green Bay on the road. You know how much of an odyssey it is to just win at Lambeau. I mean, you saw what happened last year, the BS that took place there. Arizona, yes, Taylor, you didn't mention that the fact they were 1-0-1, but let's not forget they did blow that lead last year. You can argue they should have lost that game.
Yep.
New Orleans, I'm willing to have a little bit more faith because it's at home instead of in the Superdome. If that was in the Superdome, I would give the Lions no chance to win that game. But this one, I'm feeling more optimistic. Jacksonville, nowhere near the same team that they were in the past couple of years. The Saxonville aura is gone. Jalen Ramsey is gone. Nick Foles has not been a good signing for them. I see that Jacksonville game being far more winnable than people would probably give it credit for. Atlanta on the road, yeah, that's likely a loss. Home against Indy, I'm willing to take my bets against for that one, especially when you know that Andrew Luck is likely staying retired. On the road against Minnesota, you got jacked up last year. Wouldn't surprise me if you got that same thing happen. It's very interesting that they are the dynamic of these home and away games because you start out like the first 4 are split out 2-2 at home. Then the next 4, 3 of your next 4 are on the road. So that right there creates an interesting dynamic of, hey, can this team win a game away from home? That's going to be shown a lot early on in this season. That's one key aspect to look out for. And then you go back. I think to me, the second half is more bearable than the first half because you're dealing with Washington. You're dealing with a Panthers team that doesn't have Cam Newton anymore. You're dealing with a Texas team that for some reason gave away their best weapon in DeAndre Hopkins. You know what you're going to get with the Packers and the Bears. By the way, that Texans game, like you mentioned, Taylor, on Thanksgiving. So that's a little bit of Thanksgiving revenge from 2012, years in the making. The Titans.
Yep.
Very interesting, especially on the road. Mariota's gone, but you saw how well Tannehill performed. And, of course, King Henry's a bowling ball. And then the last 2 I think are interesting because, A, it's Tom Brady, and he's making his Buck debut against the Lions. And it's so late in the season, you have to wonder, hey, will a possible playoff spot be on the line? And then, of course, Week 17, last game of the year at home, and it's against a divisional opponent. Usually you see the Packers or maybe the Bears in this spot, but for this time around, they put the Vikings in that position. So in regards to looking at the whole schedule, I see a difficult first half, a manageable second half, a testing area to see how well this team does on the road, and to me, at the very least, depending on whether or not Matt Stafford is still healthy and still upright by the end of the season, not that daunting of a schedule where you think, oh my goodness, this is 6 and 7 wins coming all the way. To me, I'm not seeing that. I do see, at the very least, depending on how the rest of the division goes, I can see 8 wins as a possibility. I mean, granted, yeah, that's the usual that I think that's the same song and dance we've been saying for years upon years about schedule predictions about, hey, what's going to happen? 8 and 8, of course. But in terms of what Patricia has done, 8 wins would be very welcome. However, I'm not sure if 8 wins would be enough for him to keep his job.
Right. And that's those are all facts right there. So Ed, you want to make a prediction before I pass it on to Frank?
I'm going to say 9 and 7. I'm going to say 9 and 7. I know it sounds far too optimistic, but I think the Lions will steal a game or two that they shouldn't. They have no business winning. They'll probably bounce it out by having another classic loss against a team they have no business losing to, or they lose a game in incredibly painful fashion, as is the case with this team. But overall, I think in terms of the best things, luck swinging their way a little bit, I think they have the capacity to go 9 and 7.
All right, Frank, your turn to talk. What's your analysis on the schedule and what's your prediction?
Well, I will say that they should win their first game against the Chicago Bears, because last year I know they lost both games, but that was when they had the contingent of Jeff Driscoll and David Blau starting and not Stafford. So I think with Stafford, they win that game. And going on the road to Lambeau Field, I just have a hard time seeing them win that one. And it really depends which version of Aaron Rodgers you get, because there's also talk that he is starting to become discontent with their front office.
Oh, and he's getting old too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that one I can see going one of two ways.
Plus, I'm sure the Jordan Love pick didn't make him exactly too keen.
Yeah.
Another good point.
I do agree with you, Ed. Going to Arizona, I think, is going to be tough, though, because I know they tied last year, but the fact that they've added DeAndre Hopkins and Kenyon Drake in recent years, and I think Kyler Murray is going to take a very big step forward this year. And plus, they've only won once in Arizona. Against New Orleans, that one I'm tempted to say lost, but again, it's at home, and plus Father Time's catching up with Drew Brees as well. Also, who knows? Jacksonville, I'll put that down. I'll put that one down as a win, because I think the Jaguars are probably going to be the worst team. Nick Foles is gone from there. He's actually in Chicago now, so who knows if he beats out Mitch. He ends up playing week 1 over Mitch Trubisky. And plus, I don't think Jacksonville is going to get much from Gardner Minshew and his jean shorts. Atlanta, right. I think is a loss. Indy, I was kind of leaning loss at first, but then again, I don't think Phillip Rivers is going to turn in a vintage Phillip Rivers performance. I know they got some good young receivers in the draft, and they can run the ball too, but who knows? So I think they can win that one. At Minnesota, I mean, the other thing too is that Stafford has actually beaten Kirk Cousins before. So, and who knows how big this game is. If they can end up coming in this game with a decent record, let's say if they're 5-2 coming in this one, I don't trust Kirk Cousins in a big spot, because he always has a tendency to go to crap in big games. Against the Redskins, they'll win that one. The Redskins are a tire fire. At Carolina, I think, is a win, because Cam Newton's gone.
Like I pointed out.
Yeah, I know Teddy Bridgewater will be likely stepping in there, but I'm really not sure how well Matt Rule is going to get the ball rolling in year 1. Houston, I think they'll win, and without any controversial touchdowns for anybody, especially with DeAndre Hopkins gone. And plus, if and I'm not sure how well Deshaun Watson can take a beating.
Not to mention, as urinating tree pointed out, Bill O'Brien is still the Texans GM.
Oh yes, Bill O'Brien. I think they need to.
How could they make it to that part of the playoffs only to lose to the Chiefs? That's my question.
They ran into the quarterback of the next decade. That's how.
Pat Mahomes?
Yeah.
That's the face of the league for the next 10 years right there. This past playoffs postseason run was about as unofficial / official of a coronation as you will see in recent memory. So knowing that Brady is not going to be here soon, knowing that Breeze is not going to be here soon, and even Rodgers may be on his way out soon. I'm surprised Rivers is here. Eli is gone. Big Ben is as much of a corpse he is close to. He's still here. Yeah, everything is opening up where this is going to be Mahomes' league for the next decade.
Yeah, I think it's going to be between him and Lamar Jackson for best quarterback in the league.
Definitely.
I was hoping to see a Ravens Chiefs AFC championship, but the Titans threw a monkey wrench into that. But anyways, continuing on, the road trip to Chicago, I want to say win, but again, the Lions are more likely to lose at Soldier Field, held for some inexplicable reason. Green Bay at home, I think they've got a better chance to beat than at Lambeau. Tennessee, I know they have King Henry, but I'm not sure if he's going to be as good as he was last year because he just had a monster season, and I'm not sure how much more he can take. And I still don't trust Ryan Tannehill and his knees made of Legos. Tampa Bay, and yes, I do know that they have one Thomas Edward, Patrick Brady playing for them. But again, I don't really trust that defense. So who knows how that one will go. And then home against the Minnesota Vikings. I think so as for a prediction on the season, I think when I first saw this, my first thought was, oh my goodness, this is going to be really tough at the beginning, and hopefully things just don't go to hell in the handbasket real quick. But I think that it's reasonable that they can finish 8-8. I mean, like Ed said, they're probably going to have to steal a game against an Indy or New Orleans, or maybe even both against the Packers as well. So we'll just see. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure it'll be enough to get them into the playoffs, or if it'll be enough to save the Quinn Trisha regime or not. But only time will tell.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and be more fair and give the Lions a 7-9 record prediction. They're still going to make some progress with their not only with their schedule but with their secondary defense with Jeff Okudah. They still need more star power on the rest of the defense, including their defensive front. They have DeAndre Swift along with Kerryon Johnson, as we pointed out when we covered the NFL draft about a couple weeks ago. Matthew Stafford is a lot healthier. His back is a lot better. Hopefully he does better than he did the last two seasons. Matt Patricia mentally, hopefully he and Darrell Bevell and the rest of the coaching staff. I hope to God that they pull their minds together and stop making stupid mistakes like the one they made in Arizona right before the end of regulation when they blew that lead, as I pointed out. So I'm going to go 7-9 on this one. All right. One more Lions story before we get on to some quick rapid fire notes, and then we'll go on to rapid fire style with the Luana K. Simon and the Andreas Athanasiou story in our story vault. According to ESPN's Michael Rothstein, Lions safety Tracy Walker remembers cousin and former high school teammate Ahmaud Arbery as a beautiful soul. Walker for months has been trying to understand why his cousin was shot and killed while jogging in broad daylight in their hometown of Brunswick, Georgia. After the video appeared last week, Gregory McMichael and his son, Travis McMichael, were arrested and charged with murder and aggravated assault more than 2 months after Arbery was killed on February 23rd, which became a national news story. Federal prosecutors are also considering hate crime charges that would allow for a separate case in federal court. Walker said Arbery didn't deserve that. They were teammates at Brunswick High School playing for the Pirates. So, Ed, I will give you probably 2 minutes. We got 15 minutes left, and I'll go as fast as we can to try to fit in the Athens and Louanna K. Simon stories. So, Ed, go ahead.
We'll see, because man, I so wish I had more than 2 minutes to talk about this whole entire spectrum of this particular case, what it represents, what it still represents, and what we need to be doing moving forward. But I appreciate hearing Tracy speak out upon this, because, like, first and foremost, above all else, this is family. This is his own blood. Imagine how you would feel, Tara. How would you feel, Frank, if you woke up and you see a family member of yours being murdered? Because that's what this was. This was a cold-blooded, calculated murder being done, and being done the way it was done. Imagine your reaction if you woke up and saw that. So I can't even comprehend the pain that Tracy is going through, and what his family is going through, and what Ahmaud's family is going through. When you consider the fact that this happened in February, and it took till May. And imagine if there wasn't video, okay? There wouldn't be an outrage. There wouldn't be this attention. If there hadn't been a video there, those two killers would still be free. So think about all the other cases where you're seeing it happen to all other forms, to all other unarmed Black people, and it's not being filmed. So that alone is another issue of a hornet's nest that I would really love to delve into, but just not enough time. But still, I appreciate the fact that Tracy Walker was speaking his cousin's story, because you like to see other folks in the media try to somehow use other stories or other incidents or moments to try somehow paint the victim as a bad person, or saying that the victim deserved what happened to him. It is sick and incomprehensible that what you're seeing being done by some media outlets to Tracy's cousin's name. But so I appreciate him doing that, at least. And again, it's just a horrible, horrible thing that needed not to have happened, should not have happened, and I wish I could say won't happen again, but that's far too naive for me to say. But yeah, it is a terrible, terrible tragedy, a horrific injustice that hopefully will be corrected soon enough.
Well, it's not naive to say, actually, because we all hope it would never happen again. But
yeah,
but
knowing, I know that, Taylor, but listen, regarding the history of this country, and as a Black person myself, knowing what this all represents and will continue to represent, I know this is not the last time you're going to see or hear of an instance of this happening. We almost had a case where an angry mob of white people tried to break into a home in North Carolina, because guess what? They were looking for the wrong Black person. Okay, this was as close to a lynching as you were going to see without rope, and they had it on video. So yeah, it's, I can't say that all this is going to stop, because yeah, I do believe it will be naive to say that, going our country's history, knowing what we've seen in regards to many, many, many people of color being killed just in this past decade alone. Yeah,
Yep. And one reason I would like to point out is because it was probably a racism issue. Those white people in North Carolina were probably racist.
What do you think? That's like saying, is the sky blue?
Right. I know. That's so simple. Everyone can figure this out from the top of their heads. Frank, will pass on to you. I'll give you 1 minute.
Well, here's what I will say. I mean, something like this, I would not wish on anybody. I mean, kind of like Ed said, I can't even begin to imagine this happening to a member of my family or a member of any of my friends' families. This is something that shouldn't have happened. And I know there's media that's saying, oh, well, he was walking into a house unauthorized. He was trespassing, doing this. Cut the crap. Just the fact that he was shot and didn't make any threats on anybody's life to begin with, it's sad.
Yeah,
It's
It's
yeah.
a sneak attack.
Taking a hammer and a few screws that warrants you getting hunted down and shot like a dog. Yeah.
Oh,
exactly. I mean,
gruesome.
look, I'm not going to say that stealing a hammer and screws was right. I mean, but it doesn't warrant getting shot and killed over it. Heck, I'm sorry. There's just a lot I'd like to say, but I'm just trying to keep it timely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but all I say is it's just beyond comprehension to say that how sad.
We'll probably go on Periscope and add some extra time later tonight after this show.
Yeah, but I will. And all I will say about the two McMichaels, their day is coming, and they will answer for what they did.
Yeah, and follow us on Periscope and Twitter at Michigan_Truth, also on Instagram as well. So, couple notes. Former Los Angeles Lakers guard and former Michigan State Spartan men's basketball player guard Shannon Brown from 2005 was arrested on a charge of aggravated assault in an incident involving a rifle on May 2nd. Oh boy, that's real scary. This is not deer hunting, folks. My goodness. Pistons power forward Blake Griffin feels ready to go following his knee surgery back in January of this year. He's been cleared for a while now, he says. Wow, that's I mean, it is something positive to say, but sometimes you got to be cautious. But he is 100% fully healthy nonetheless. And finally, former Tigers pitcher Armando Galarraga wants his perfect game because he doesn't want to die without MLB knowing he threw a perfect game when he got screwed over by then umpire Jim Joyce, who's still an umpire. He should have been fired right after that missed call. He wants that missed call overturned, does Galarraga, and so his perfect game can be recognized more. Everyone does. Simple. So there you go. Now on to the Luana K. Simon story from ESPN. Eaton County Judge John Maurer dismisses criminal charges against former MSU president, Michigan State University President Luana K. Simon, arising from the Larry Nassar scandal. The charges against Simon center on a 2018 interview with investigators who wanted to know what officials at the school know about any complaints about Nassar years earlier. Authorities said Simon knew in 2014 that Nassar had been accused of molesting a patient at a campus clinic and that she knew of the nature of the complaint. Simon insisted that she knew only that a complaint had been filed against a sports doctor. The judge said, quote, "The prosecution didn't provide evidence sufficient to give a reasonable person probable cause to believe that Dr. Simon knew during her 2018 interview that a purported knowledge in 2014 of Dr. Nassar's name and the nature and substance of the complaint against him," unquote, were relevant to the 2018 investigation itself. So we got less than 8 minutes left. Ed, I'll give you just 1 minute and then we'll go to the story vault and then our closing statement. I'll pass it on to Frank as well. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah. All I gotta say is, without getting too political, which shocking, I know. All I gotta say is, I just wonder who decided to play the role of Attorney General Bill Barr in East Lansing. That's or within Lansing grounds, because that to me that just sounds too fishy and too convenient. Of like, oh yeah, here Nassar's in jail and everybody else is gone, so here.
Prison. Worse than jail.
Correction. Yes, he's in prison. He's gone. And everybody else
175 years.
Right. So I guess they're like, okay, enough, and you lost your job. So hey, what's the worst we can do for you, right? So this was as close to a slap of the wrist as you're going to see, and something like this just feels and smells fishy.
Yeah, Frank, what do you think of that?
Well, my initial reaction is that the Eaton County Prosecutor's Office did not do a thorough enough job in prosecuting this case. So
agreed.
I'm not sure if they left stuff out or didn't do what they were supposed to, but shame on them. And it's just sad that Luana K. Simons pretty much gets off with nothing. And I know, like Ed said, people are going to say, oh, well, Larry Nassar is in prison. He's going to rot there for the rest of his life.
But that's barely any solace. More people that were in charge of this knew what was going on, and they deserve to be their just punishment as well. This is not just punishment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think,
I
and I
agree.
think the Eaton County judge should be fired along with his investigators. Like you pointed out, Frank, they didn't do a good enough job. They should be fired. New people should step in, and they should reinvestigate Luana K. Simon. Period.
Well, Taylor, let me add this too. There's just a part of me that wonders why couldn't Judge Rosemary Aquilina preside over this case? I mean, I know she presided over Nasser and she basically threw the book at him. And I do remember reading a quote she said about how when he was trying to get a new trial, and she said, "This ain't Burger King. You're not having it your way." There's just a part of me that wishes that she would have presided over this because I think she would have made sure that everything would have been done correctly and properly, and then we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right. Let's go ahead and get to the story vault. Jeff Moss of the Detroit Sports Rag headlines are the Red Wings showcasing Andreas Athanasiou from November 20th, 2017. Athanasiou held his nose, bit his tongue, and signed a one-year contract in Detroit for the paltry sum of $1.38 million instead of taking a two-year offer for around $4 million. That's a highlight in this body of this article that showcases that display for a reason for this article. And the wager that 72 Andreas Athanasiou places paying off in spades so far. He already has 5 goals in 11 games at that point, which would equate to a 37 goal pace if Ken Holland hadn't jacked him around for 8% of the season. Furthermore, the Wings were 6-3-2 since A double returned to the lineup and playing their best hockey this season. All that stuff. Ed, we'll give you 1 minute, and then I'll pass it to Frank, and then we'll go to the closing statement. Ed, go. Ed?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, it was just a prelude to how eventually the inevitable was coming. Andres was going to be leaving the city, leaving the team one way or another, and it was done. So basically, it's nice to look at this as a refresher, knowing in hindsight what eventually it led to.
Yeah, and Ken Holland and Andreas Athanasiou are both in Edmonton. Frank?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what Ed said, it was kind of a precursor to what was eventually going to happen, and I just find it ironic that he ends up back with Ken Holland in Edmonton, and who knows what maybe when because I know that he did sign, I believe it was a 3-year contract after this whole debacle took place. So who knows when his contract is up again in Edmonton if Holland will do the same shenanigans all over again or not, but only time will tell.
Yeah, that's true. So that's our TMSTP story vault. We've got 2 and change minutes. Closing statement. Ed, I'll give you 45 seconds. Closing statement, go.
Closing statement for me would be in terms of, again, solace and condolences to Tracy Walker's family, and of course, by extension, his cousin's family, Ahmaud Arbery. Justice needs to be done, not just for Ahmaud's sake, but for what his case symbolizes, represents for so many Black people in this country.
Frank, I'll give you 45 seconds as well. Go.
Well, kind of like what we discussed at the top of our show, we're seeing sports leagues continuing that slow process of getting back to action. And I know it's not where we want to be, and who knows if everybody is going to be back in action, especially on the college side of things. And it's a shame that some aspects of it had to be cut, like in the Mid-American Conference. But again, I'll just say this. It's better to have this with limits and restrictions than nothing at all.
All right. My closing statement, the same thing with the Luana K. Simon stuff. Not a good, the prosecutors and investigators did not do a good job. And the judge jumped the shark on it too. They all should be fired. New people should step in, and a reinvestigation should be done nonetheless. So that's our closing statement segment. Thanks very much, guys. We'll talk a bit later on Instagram, on Periscope, actually, at Michigan_truth. I'll tag you guys on it. If there's any local, state, or national business that is interested in sponsoring the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on the Staples Network, please contact the network executive producer Mark Mancini by email at mancinisports@yahoo.com or operations producer Breck Smith at breck@thestablesnetwork.com. Scour the Staples Network's website, primetimewiththestablesnetwork.com. Subscribe to its YouTube channel like the Staples Network on Facebook, and follow it on Twitter, Periscope at Staples Network, and on Instagram at the Staples Network. Also, listen to the Staples Network on many podcast platforms, including Spreaker. Check out our show, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast website, the MichiganSportsTruthPodcast.com. Also, like its 2 Facebook pages, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, one created by me at Michigan Sports Truth, and the other created by the Staples Network at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Follow its Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. For Frank, Ed, I'm Taylor. We'll be back next Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Stay tuned for the Paradigm Shift coming up next on the Staples Network. Thanks so much for listening and downloading and sharing. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Bon appetit. Hit him with a hind. We rest our case. Stay safe.
Stay safe, everybody.
Stay safe and stay healthy.
Yep. Stay live.